At last, she peered down into the crate, and a broad smile spread across her face. "There he is," Dr. Dickerson said. "Our mummy." After a moment, she stepped down, and Pete climbed up to take a look. "Come on over and see," he said to the Aldens. Pete stepped down. One at a time, the Aldens climbed up the stepladder and peered into the crate. Inside, they saw what looked like a person lying down, completely covered in cloth bandages. But the person had no face. Where the face should have been, there were just bandages, giving it a strange, creepy look.
"Wow,"
said Benny. He couldn't believe there was really a dead body inside. He felt a chill run up his spine. Henry was the last of the children to look into the crate. He stepped down, and Tina stepped up in his place.
"Oh, look at that,"
she said, peering into the crate. But as she shifted her feet on the top of the stepladder, she suddenly fell.
"Ow!"
she cried out as she landed on the floor. Everyone rushed over. Dr. Dickerson knelt on the floor beside Tina. "What happened?" she asked, helping Tina to sit up. "Are you hurt?" Tina grimaced in pain.
"My ankle,"
she said, gritting her teeth.
"I think I twisted it."
Dr. Dickerson and Pete looked at Tina's ankle. It was turning pink and beginning to swell. As Pete gently touched her ankle, Tina winced in pain.
"We'd better put some ice on that to stop the swelling,"
Jessie suggested.
"I'll run down to the cafe and get some."
"That would be great," Dr. Dickerson said.
"Yes, thank you,"
Tina said, her voice filled with pain. Jessie came back a moment later with the ice. Tina held it on her ankle for several minutes, but her pain did not let up. "I think we'd better take Tina over to the hospital," Dr. Dickerson said. "We should get some x-rays and see if anything's broken." Dr. Dickerson drove Tina to the hospital, promising to call as soon as they knew how bad Tina's ankle was. Pete and the Aldens waited in the prep room. "Well, how would you guys like to see some of the other pieces in the exhibit?" Pete asked, trying to cheer everyone up.
"That would be great,"
Jessie said, speaking for all of them. Pete led them over to one of the tables, where some things had been unpacked from their boxes and arranged in neat rows. Next to each item was a small card with information printed on it. "These statues show what life was like in ancient Egypt." There was a woman carrying a basket on her head and a man holding a pitcher. Some of the statues were part human and part animal. "That's how the ancient Egyptians portrayed their gods," Pete explained. On another table were statues carved from gray limestone, white alabaster, and yellow jasper. Some were made of clay or wood and were painted in bright colors. There were animal sculptures in gold and silver and bronze. There were also cups and pots, necklaces and bracelets. "The Egyptians thought that after you died, in the afterlife, you'd need everything you used when you were alive," Pete said. "So they buried their dead with plates, clothes, jewelry, and sometimes even chariots."
"Those 2 gold cats are beautiful,"
Violet said.
"I like the funny monkey,"
said Benny, pointing to a statue of a baboon. "Over here we have instruments," Pete said, pointing to a wooden flute decorated with gold. "The Egyptians loved to sing, dance, and make music."
"What did children play back then?"
Benny asked. "Well, they didn't have video games or TV," said Pete, "but I think some of their toys will look familiar to you."
"Really?"
asked Benny. Pete pointed to the end of the table. "Those look like balls," Henry said. "That's right," said Pete. "Balls, marbles, spinning tops. Imagine, these toys were used thousands of years ago. Here's a doll that belonged to a little girl in ancient Egypt," Pete continued. The doll's body was made from a flat board decorated with patterns, and her hair was strung with clay beads. It looks different from dolls today, but I'm sure the girl who owned it loved it just as much. Just then, the phone rang. Pete picked up the receiver. "Hello? Oh, yes, Sam. How is she?" The Aldens watched as Pete's face darkened. "Oh, that's terrible," he said. "I'll see you when you get back." Pete hung up the phone and turned to the children. "Tina's ankle is broken. She'll have to stay off it for several weeks."
"That's awful,"
Violet said. "Yes, poor Tina," Pete said. "And without her help, how will we get this exhibit ready in time?"
"She had just looked at the mummy when she fell,"
said Benny. Pete frowned. "Maybe it's the mummy's curse," he said.